All right, welcome. This is the regular scheduled meeting of the Auctioneer Commission. Let's go ahead and call it to order, and let's do a roll call. Campbell Sterling.
Here.
Jeff Morris.
Here.
Dwayne Rogers.
Here.
Ed Knight.
Here.
And Larry Sims. All right, we do have quorum. Let me welcome our new member, Larry Sims. He has yet to join us. He may come in later, so we'll just greet him then. But Ed Knight, welcome. Very happy to have you here. So stepping in some big shoes there. Mr. Lowe right behind me, and we'll present him and Mr. Thorpe a couple plaques at the end of the meeting. But we appreciate their service as well. But I know you'll do fine. Looking forward to it. Thank you. All right. Notice of meeting. Notice of the February 28, 2022 meeting of the Auctioneer Commission, including date, time, and location, has been noticed on the website since August 16, 2021. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since February 18th, 2022. Trust you have the agenda there in front of you. Let me.
I think everybody's up to speed on that.
Like, you know what to do with those Apple products. I would have been lost for days on that one, but good deal. All right.
I move we adopt the agenda as written.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Morris and a second from Mr. Sterling. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, the agenda has been accepted as printed. November minutes. All right. If you want to take a look at that, that'd be document number 2. Any comments?
We get the
All right.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Sterling to accept the minutes. We got a second from Mr. Morris. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, the November minutes will be posted on the website. Thank you. Robert's Rules. It's not on the agenda, but something we just do sort of administrative thing each year at our first meeting, just to approve that for use. We saw Mr. Knight. If you're not familiar with Robert Rules, we just use that to do the voting. So, if that is the will of the commission to continue using that format and that procedure, I just need a motion in that regard. Do we have a motion?
Robert.
All right, thank you, sir. We got a second from Mr. Morris as well. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we'll continue with Robert's Rules of Order. The education review. It's we don't have any courses today. What we have is instructors. Everyone here is familiar with the Nashville Auction School. I have a long history with them, and trust there'll be no gaps there. We've met Mr. McCarroll, he's sitting behind me, and Mr. McCarroll, if you could come to the and opportunity to.
Morning.
Good morning. Just want to start by saying thanks for being here. Gosh, you guys have got a tough task ahead of you, and I know that each and every one of you work hard, and we appreciate your contribution. Just a quick introduction. My name is Shane McCarroll. I'm a very small part of the new ownership team at Nashville Auction School. The rest of the team includes my wife, who is actually the boss of everything. I want that to go on record, but more importantly, Jason and Natalie Deal out of Clinton, Tennessee, if you're not familiar with them. I know you're familiar with Nashville Auction School, and both Wendell and Ressa have kind of manned that ship for the last 21 years. We got big shoes to fill. We appreciate everything you've done for Nashville Auction School, and more importantly, what you continue to do for the auction profession and the education within the profession. You know, our goal from the beginning has been consistency with what Nashville Auction School has been putting out as far as educators, core education, and we expect that you'll see the same type of information come across your desks. We appreciate everything that you do. We appreciate what you're going to continue to do. And at this point, we'd just like to say that we're going to try to keep it as consistent as it has been in the past. Good news is that Wendell and Ressa are still on board with us through a transition period. So we hope to have zero issues during the transition. And as long as there's no questions, I'll leave it to that. We appreciate you guys.
Mr. McCarroll, I appreciate that.
Shane, if you would, just to make it a little easier on the commission, if you would outline the instructors that we're here to approve and a little bit about their background and the years of experience and that sort of thing, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Do you have that?
I do.
Thank you. Sure. So, obviously, the first couple that you're going to see are the new ownership team, and what we hope to do is to be able to proctor a lot of the instructors that are already approved and that have been approved in the past. But the first name you'll see is obviously mine. If you're not familiar, prior to my service in the auction industry, I was a 15-ish year veteran of both the Marine Corps and the Army. Didn't really have a plan to get in the auction business. I'm a first-generation guy, and at the end of the day, I'm going to be in charge of primarily in charge of all the education as the education director. So, having my name on that list of approved instructors will obviously assist in the things that we can run through the course. I am an approved instructor for the National Auctioneers Association. I do teach the Certified Education Specialist and the State Specialist for the NAA. Have about 10 years of experience in the auction business. Currently serve on numerous contract auction jobs throughout the country, including Barrett-Jackson. Do a lot of cool stuff. That's all in here. I do have a significant background both in the auction industry and the military, but that's all in front of you. So, and as we go to the next folks, Wayne Wooten is one of the newer instructors that we'd like to bring on, and he's essentially going to be taking on what Ressa did with antiques. As we know, there's not a whole lot of people standing in line in the auction business to teach about antiques, primarily because a lot of them are either phasing out or auction industry isn't really interested in it anymore. Interestingly enough, Wayne has a significant background in antiques and in the auction business. He graduated North Georgia Auction School back in 2014, owns Weiss Lake Auction, Valley Head Antiques, just been in the auction business his whole life. But more than just 30 years in the auction business, he's also always specialized in antiques. So we're going to kind of bring him on as that hard-to-find antique instructor. We're just glad to find somebody that actually wanted to teach it. I believe he's licensed both Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and a pretty active member of the National Auctioneers Association. He holds the Graduate of Auction Marketing Management course from that, which is AMM. Jason Deal's the next one, again, part of the ownership team. If you don't know about Jason, he's GPPA AMMARRE and CAI through the National Auctioneers Association. Quite possibly one of the most active people in the NAA at the moment. Just got back from Dallas-Fort Worth a couple days ago, teaching a class out there. Also, very extensive military background, 25 plus years, I believe, in the Army, retired major. So, professional experience right now, owns JD's Auctions out in Clinton, Tennessee, and has commanded battalions and infantry divisions all over the country. But education-wise, he graduated North Georgia School of Auctioneering as well. He does have an MBA since 2012, Bachelor of Science in 2000 from East Tennessee State University. Natalie is his wife. We were asking for her to come on board and teach a lot of the business-related things. You know, it's funny what we have found, and I'm sure many of you have getting your education. You know, a lot of times our auction industry is, you know, have been known to bring in other auctioneers to teach auction stuff, but we don't really bring in a lot of business-oriented people to teach business to auction people. And I think that that's something that Natalie's going to bring. You know, not only is she have an extensive background in education, but she also is an auctioneer, an affiliate auctioneer right now, and she's been a real estate agent for a significant amount of time. So we're really trying to bring her experience in this, you know, outside of the auction industry that's been paired with the auction industry and really give, you know, just an impression to the new auction folks, the new auction students, that they realize that the business side of this is really what we do the most of and what I feel is most important. Because there's a lot of bid callers that we can put in front of podiums, and we all know that. But running the business side of it is important, and that's what Natalie's going to bring to the table. That's the 4 that we're asking for now. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you you'll see many more in the near future. But that's kind of going to be our core changes. Wendell and the rest are going to stay on board. All the instructors that you've previously approved are going to be the ones bringing forth the education that has already been approved. But we wanted to make those additions to make sure that we could pivot as we see necessary. We just graduated our first class, the 50-hour course. And I will tell you that there's people lining up. It's a good time to be in the auction business, and I think that the word's getting out because we have 20 to 25 people on board for a class that we don't have scheduled yet right now. So exciting things coming for the industry, and I'm willing to ask or answer any questions you may have.
I would just make the comment. I think that the school is in great hands. As I told you before, I was very excited to see some young leadership coming out of the TAA and getting involved with the National Auction School, and seeing you guys, what y'all are doing, and y'all taking the auction business to a whole new level. And I'm very excited about the future of our business, and it's just an exciting time to be in the auction business. I agree with that 100%. So I appreciate you giving us a synopsis of that. It makes it easier for the commission members. We're not good at reading stuff too much. So
I understand.
Yeah, but it was all there.
It was all there.
I read it all. I read it all. Is there a problem with the commissioner setting in on a class sometime, that one of your classes?
Oh, not that I see. Not at all.
I'm not saying we will, but, sometimes that's kind of fun to see what's being taught. And the only thing I worry about is the thing about the antiques. That's what I do. Done it for 30 years. And get the wrong antique person in there. Now, according to your comment, the antiques is hard to find a professor, and I'm sure it is, because I'm not interested. But
the pay's not that great, Mr. Sterling, just for the record.
Well, sometimes the pay's not that great here either. Pay's great when you have a big art and antique auction. You sell $1 million sale. That's what I like, or a $250,000 coin sale. But I think you got a good man on to try that with, and I hope he does you good. But when I came on this commission, I came on as type of an arts and antique auctioneer, which they hadn't very rarely had before. And I've done that since the mid-'80s. Sold everything from the Alex Haley estate to the Johnny Winter rock and roll estate. I've sold a lot of interesting things. And I would be a perfect instructor, but I'm not an instructor. I'm through with that stuff. But I think Mr. Wooten will do you a good job.
We appreciate that. And as far as setting in, the neat thing about Tennessee, and you guys were the spearhead of it, you're the only one that are allowing a full virtual course throughout all the states. So it's super easy to get you a discount code and get you to log in anytime that you want to. The 50-hour course is completely virtual, so you could experience that firsthand if you'd like. And of course, we've got an 85-hour course happening in Tullahoma, and then we're going to move to Chattanooga State Community College and put one out there in Chattanooga as well. We've partnered with that, so any of those classes that you guys ever would like to be a part of, I'd welcome you with open arms.
Never forget about Northeast Tennessee. There's, the community college up in Morristown used to have a 50-hour course, and it disappeared. And then most of those people went to Mendenhall, where I attended years ago, and that there's a blank there in Upper East Tennessee.
I completely agree.
Once a year, at least, maybe
sure.
Once a year. But
Well,
the community college used to work with I think they worked with Nashville Auction School years ago. Worked with somebody.
That'll be one of the biggest difference for Nashville Auction Schools. We're not going to have a brick and mortar location in Tullahoma anymore. The brick and mortar location is essentially just going to be a small office in Clarksville, and then we're going to move around the state of Tennessee and offer it in places that it wasn't offered before. We're just hoping to find other community colleges to allow us to utilize the venue, because as you can imagine, when you try to rent a place for 10 days, it gets pretty expensive. So we're going to try to partner with some community colleges, and ultimately, for example, the community college out there in Chattanooga has offered to advertise for us and possibly bring some of their students in. And likewise, we're going to create a scholarship to allow one or two of their qualifying students to attend the auction school, just in case they wanted to make that a part of their future. So we appreciate
I've done some auctioneering merit badges for Boy Scouts. It doesn't exist really, but they create it. It's a pretty cool thing. Some of their parents ended up being auctioneers after that.
Sounds like we're getting some exposure as well, so that's good. So that I'm glad we're moving across straight. So, and just one update to Natalie Deal. She's also was recently licensed as an affiliate auctioneer. So in addition to administrative courses, she's officially an auctioneer as well. So it's a good deal. All right, so we'll just need to make take some action on that. As for
I move that we approve these 4 people.
Great.
As,
We got
as
a motion.
instructors for the National Auction School.
That'll work. Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
You got a second.
Do we have a second? All right. Got a second there from Mr. Sims then. And Ms. Sims, that gives me an opportunity too to welcome you. So thank you. I'm so glad to see you as well. And if you're having a problem with your iPad there, if I'm sort of Apple products illiterate, but Mr. Knight was all over it. But if you run into trouble like I would, then gentleman to your left or right will be able to help you find those documents there, or you can just wave at me and I'll get you. All right. So
Let them print it out like I do.
okay, that'll work. All right. So all in favor then to approve these instructors, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. McCarroll, as well. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. It looks like we're ready for the next piece, the director's report. We're going to start there with the budget. All right. At our last meeting, we covered the reserves in this year's fiscal trending through September. So at this meeting, we're going to focus on the last 2 months of record, which is October through November. Although we are in deficit these 2 months, you will note that was common the last 3 years prior when you compare the historical data below. So that there's nothing off trending there that sort of struck or that stood out or bothered me. I noticed a very small increase in administrative expense due to board meeting travel in November, but that's not unusual either. That's just the cost of doing business. Other than that, nothing else caught my attention. We're still in surplus as expected this year. So. Which puts us in surplus of $9,400 this fiscal year so far. And just for our new members, you'll notice the revenues on top, the expenses below, basically a profits and loss. You've seen those probably before in your business. And then with the surplus or deficit below, marked just below that. And then below that is our reserve balance, where it stands right now as we add or detract from that. And then below that, the historical that I was referring to, which shows you the prior year's revenues and expense as well to compare with. And that's where you can sort of, layer that and see if there's anything that sticks out as well. And upon review of the counts, what I saw was just the travel, but that was it. Any questions as regards to that? Okay. All right, that's just for informational purposes. No action necessarily on that, but we'll give that to you every single time we see you. So, and of course, if you've had any questions, you can reach out to me direct as well, and there's no problem. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have in regards to that. The NAA conference, that's our next agenda item. Each year it's in a different city. This year it's in San Diego, California. The dates on that are July 26th through the 30th. We probably want to send Jeff on that one since he is our National Auctioneer Licensed Law Officials Association rep, which is a mouthful. I have to write that down. Neloa. How's it go?
Neloa.
Okay.
Neloa. Took me forever to figure that out.
I promise I'm going to get that worked out, but maybe not at this meeting, but we'll try.
Right.
But we do have room for one more as well. Right now, Mr. Knight has indicated interest in attending, but we, of course, have to vote for that each year. So we've got 2 right now. We can only send 2, so we may have to do a rotation should Mr. Knight go this year. We could send someone perhaps next year. But right now, unless there's any comments or questions as regards to that, we'll need to vote on that. Do we have a motion?
We accept Mr. Knight for the San Diego convention. Been there and done it. The time he'll get over till.
We've got Mr. Knight and Mr. Morris as well. Did your motion include him as well?
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes. I thought that was understood.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We'll still
I
have to
thought
vote
that
on
was
that.
understood. I didn't say that. I'm sorry, Jeff.
No problem.
All right. So we got a motion then for Mr. Sterling for Mr. Morris and Mr. Knight to attend this year's NAA conference. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We got a second for Mr. Rogers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. All right. You'll, of course, want to register for that, and then we'll be in touch with you with regard to details. Okay. Election of officers. Oh, before we go to election officers, one part is NALOA. Because of the work done there with Mr. Morris and with that particular committee, we're aware of certain changes that address or trends that happen throughout the country, that's important work. We always want to stay on top of that. But We've noticed that there are some changes in licensing requirements across the state. So we always, when we're aware of that, we'll make sure we do our research to look at any implications that may affect our reciprocity, either states that no longer meet our standard and would have to drop off that reciprocity, or states that now meet our standard and would have to come on. So Bob's going to be rolling up his sleeves and getting in the dough on that one for us. And so we may see some movement as far as states that we accept reciprocity or that list back and forth. All right, so I'll keep you up to date on that should there be any shifts or changes on that. But just as informational piece, one lets you be aware of that. And of course, Mr. Morris is already tracking a lot of that with NOLA. All right, election of officers then, unless there's any questions or comments that you had, Jeff. Okay. All right, election of officers then. With Mr. Thorpe rolling off the board as chairman, we'll need to select someone for that position. Per statute, we typically have in the past have historically selected a vice chairman as well. So we're open the floor for nominations in that regard for chairman and vice chairman.
If it pleases you, I'd like to nominate Campbell Sterling as chairman for the next year.
We can take them separately or together. Is there a vice chairman that you would recommend as well?
Not at this
Okay,
time.
so
I
we'll
would
take.
recommend Jeff vice
Okay.
chairman, because the new guys coming on, they'll figure out what it is.
Okay.
We'll
Well, I
go
think we
through
can
it.
take that then as we'll just do one nomination then in regards to both. Then we'll just Mr. Sterling, would that be your since you got a nomination from Mr. Morris, a motion to approve? Well, we got nominations. We'll just do it. We'll take this completely separately. One nomination for Mr. Sterling to be chairman, and then one nomination for Mr. Morris to be vice chairman. Now we'll need a motion to accept both of those in those regards. Do we have a motion in that regard? All right. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Do we have a
Get the
second?
most.
Got a second from Mr. Sterling. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay. You're our new officers then. All right.
Let me ask you a question. At the beginning of this, you said John Thorpe was the chairman, but wasn't Randy the chairman after John? Or am I wrong?
I believe
Weren't you the
there
chairman?
was some variation.
Yeah, it was during the pandemic.
That's correct.
But I noticed that in the letter you sent us,
Okay.
that it said that John was, and John was a great chairman, but Randy was a good chairman.
That's right. Thank you for. We don't want to slight Mr. Lowe as well.
Yeah,
so
he was
you-
getting slighted a little
yeah.
bit there.
So we have Thorpe, then Lowe, now Mr. Sterling. So all right, we got
There
it.
you
We
go.
got it. And Naloa.
No,
And could I go
All right.
ahead and get my plaque today? Do you have an extra plaque? I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, we're going to hold on to you for a little while longer.
Okay, so-
All right. So I think we can move on to the legal portion of our report. I think we're ready for the legal report, Miss Matlock.
Yes, we have on the legal report today 3 matters. I'll just go ahead and read those numbers into the record. 2021-074431, 2021-078-76871, and 2022-001711. Would you like me to go over each case or?
Don't mind, that'd
Okay,
be great.
sure,
Especially
great.
for our new members that are not used to this.
Okay, so the first case, this was an administratively opened complaint, means it was opened by the program. This occurred during a random auditing of continuing education. The program does that routinely, and at the time, the respondent did not have the appropriate continuing education. However, that was cured on November 29th, and therefore my recommendation for this matter would be a dismiss with no action. So the complaint was open because there is a deficiency, and then the issue was cured before we were able to.
These companies are supposed to automatically report. Do we have a way of following up with them? Because, I mean,
Companies. So this is just this is a principal auctioneer, and it was audited by the licensed staff. So
Right.
Glenn and his.
if you take a course and you think it's been reported and you don't report it yourself, you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Do we have any way to contact those companies and find out where the slip up is in terms of, because I'm licensed in 6 states, and I have to get it to all 6 states, and so it's kind of tough sometimes keeping up with that.
Yeah, administratively and historically, that's placed on the auctioneer themselves. At time, there are some education providers that provide those rosters, and we hold on to it. We don't purge anything we
Okay.
receive, and so where available, we can look at that, but primarily that's the responsibility of the auctioneer.
I get that. All right, but you're told though when you take these online courses that it gets automatically reported. You put your license number in there, but sometimes I guess that doesn't happen. Anyway, I'm make a motion that we accept the legal request. Recommendation to dismiss this case.
Motion from Mr. Regards to the recommendation. Did a second from Mr. Sterling. All in favor, please. Number 2.
Number 2, this was an anonymous complaint that was sent in. Respondent is an unlicensed individual. So the complainant alleged that respondent was operating without a license, and they provided their address number. The alleged auction house answered the complaint and stated that there was some confusion in the response from respondent. I think initially they thought this was a tax-related matter, but upon conversation with me, they realized that it was more of an auctioneer matter for what the complaint was about. So I was able to speak to the respondent on the phone. They informed me that they believed that the complaint was from an angry patron, and this complaint was opened. But however, after reviewing for the complaint and the response, it does appear that respondent is operating without a license. They do not have a principal auctioneer as required by statute for the activities that are covered in the definition of auction. I explained that to the respondent on the telephone, and hope to be that we are getting cooperation with them to get a license. So my recommendation for this matter would be a $500 civil penalty for unlicensed activity. Any additional?
I have several. What kind of auctions were they doing?
At the time, I don't know. The complaint that was sent in was a response. It was like a piece of paper and said they're doing auctions. But let me look in the file really quickly to see if I can look at their actual. I was able to find a website.
One-time auction or a regular occurring auction?
Yes. Any individual is permitted to file a complaint with the department.
Ginger, Charles, and John, those are the only 3 people that knows who's what. So even if you showed up and were there right now, without Ginger being there, you can't do anything.
Second, working on some technical difficulty. It comes from the public. They have to submit themselves as the complainant. There's not anonymous per se in the sense that there's an option for that from the public. Anonymous if we were to send it, but we don't typically do third party, because if we're gonna, there needs to be an opportunity for us to be able to go back to that individual and to get and to have continued follow up. If we submit it, it's going to be an admin complaint, which is what complaint number 1 was, and then we'll tell you that we submitted it. That's not anonymous. That's us submitting it. We're going to tell you that, and we're going to explain why. But for the public, we don't typically have anonymous in the truest sense, because we're not going to list them on this report. We need to contact both those folks and follow up with them. Now, anonymous in the sense that it's not on this report. Just like the complainant as well.
Y'all know who it is.
We know who it is, right? Yes, sir.
Looks like I do know that these are in-person auctions. I'm not able to tell based on the website and the secondary social media post exactly what type of auctions.
Does he advertise?
So they don't. The respondent doesn't have a license. No one has a license in this circumstance. So
I will agree with $500 fine.
But what are they selling?
um
And to whom?
the people. Oh, that's. Let's see.
I have a question as well. After the penalty, do we follow up to see if they have then got a license, or what was to keep him, if he's making an extensive profit, to just say, well, I'm just going to pay this $500 fine again?
So, in the consent order, which is essentially what would be sent to someone if we're requiring them to take action, like here with the $500 civil penalty, we can add special provisions in the consent order asking that the individual either obtain a license or obtain a licensee for their particular company. So at this time, they don't have it. But then I've done complaints before where an individual has been unlicensed, but we give them 30 days to come up with a plan, and then we look at it again to see if they are licensed. At that point, if they're not unlicensed, then either a civil penalty can increase, or those are our kind of options there at that point. So I would kind of recommend this in this situation, since we know, I can tell that they're doing auctions. So we can just track and make sure that they have someone licensed working, or they're working to obtain it.
Can we give him like 30 days to get his license? And if he doesn't, then the penalty would take effect?
But no, yeah, that's what my
Yeah.
suggestion was. Like, we
I
would give
withdraw my
them.
motion then.
Well, I would still recommend the civil penalty. It's up to you if you want to do the civil penalty. So we can do a civil penalty and a requirement for licensure, or we can do one or the other.
But is this a one-time thing that they're doing? Is this a regular auction?
No, it's a regular auction house. I am looking at several.
They advertise themselves as an auction house?
It is called blank blank auction house.
Okay.
In your communication with him, did he know that he should have known that he needed a license? In my opinion, if he knew he needed a license, you just didn't, he needs to be fined. If not, you're the one that communicated with him.
Right now, so I spoke to the owner, and it seemed like they were unaware that they didn't know that they need a license, but I'm not exactly sure about that, just in the process that they're doing auctions at least once or multiple times a week, and that we're regulated. It's up to you what method you like to choose, but once I informed the individual that licensure would be required, they agreed that they would get the license. But that was when I was writing this at the time of a couple of weeks ago. I don't have any further information, but at the time they stated they did not know they needed.
I don't think they can get a license in 30 days.
Right. Or so they might not be able to get a license, but they might be able to hire or contract with a principal auctioneer. Yeah. So those are the kind of options that we could possibly offer too.
They're advertising themselves as an auction house, and this has been going on for some time, right?
Right.
Okay. Make the motion. We fine them the $500, make sure that they understand they have to have a license or get a principal auctioneer as their auctioneer, and understand what the laws are.
Second motion.
Got a motion to council's recommendation, and should there, and of course, seek licensure or someone to work in that stead that is licensed.
No, I'm not saying that they can get out of the $500 by getting a license. I'm saying they're going
Right.
to pay the $500 fine.
So I had some additional follow-up questions. So we want them to get a license or be in the, what are like the parameters that you want to set?
Well,
for
I mean,
them?
if they do it again and in the future past the date of the letter, then they will get another $500.
Right. So are we sticking to the 30 days?
No,
No.
they can't get a license in 30 days,
Okay.
but they can hire an auctioneer, but they should have already done that if they're an auction house. So they got to pay the $500 fine. They got to get them a licensed auctioneer or get licensed.
Right.
There's in those citation orders, there's cease and desist language, should there not be licensed. That's a part of the.
That's fine. Yeah.
So okay, $500 then to fine for in regards to that, and we got a motion from Mr. Morris. We got a second from Mr. Sterling. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, we can move on to number 3.
This complaint was the complainant is a licensee and respondent is an unlicensed individual. So the complainant is alleging that the respondent hired them to call bids at an auction, and after the contract was signed, they realized that respondent was unlicensed. Complainant had alleged that the respondent was using their name and license number without permission in their advertisements, and further claimed that they were acting as an auctioneer without a license and wants their name cleared of any wrongdoing. A respondent answered the complaint, stating that this appears to be a contractual issue. They stated that they work with the company for the complainant, and prior to accepting any property or items located here in Tennessee that they contract with an individual that is licensed. They did contact the office here at the they did contact the program office to confirm whether they needed a license, and they had done that at the time. However, the auction never took place before it happened. Based upon the information that was provided in this complaint, I believe that this is more of a contractual issue, which would fall outside of the commission's jurisdiction. Complainant also did not provide any proof of any advertisements that were in their name, so I recommend that this matter be dismissed with no action.
Motion for Mr. Sterling to dismiss per council's recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second for Mr. Sims. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, hearing none. That takes care of the legal report. I think we're ready for a legislative update then.
Hi, it's me again. So I don't have a lot of specific bills here for the auctioneers that are running this session, but there's one bill that touched on auctioneers. I'm trying to pull it up real quick. Essentially what the bill did was add excuse me. There is a provision in the statutes for a retailer's market law. And so essentially they have created a new subdivision that would exempt an auctioneer, anyone licensed by our chapter, as a marketplace facilitator. So that means that licensees would not be considered to be part of the marketplace, and would also not be, and then would be part of the Retailer Sales Act. It's more of like a tax issue.
Yeah, that was going to ask you about that because there was a big deal. They were going to try to include all auctions in sales tax provision. That even if we did an estate sale, we'd have to collect sales tax.
Right. So this specific bill, if it, at the time that I looked at it and analyzed it, it removed. There was an exemption for auctioneers in this particular matter. I'm not sure where it is right now in session, but I think that maybe.
Well, it goes beyond that. This is what we need to focus on. I've always taken the attitude that I don't sell anything I own as an auctioneer. But if I sell your mom's house full of stuff, I'm selling your mom's stuff, and if your mother has to pay sales tax, then I have to collect it and give it to her so she can file the return. And that's what I'm hoping we don't get into, is where the estates are being taxed on the sale of items as an estate sale. And and then they were going to look to the auctioneers as being culpable for having to pay that. And I want to make sure we're not in the middle of that loop.
I'm not sure exactly if that is the specific bill here, but I do know that for this particular bill, that auctioneers are exempt from it. So we don't see all of the bills that come in because there are hundreds, but if there is a bill that mentions one of the programs or chapters that we regulate here in the department, we do a bill analysis on it. So I don't have, this one did not specifically mention estates or anything in that matter, so I'm not sure about that, but I can give you the bill number if you wanted to see the bill for yourself, to look at it, if there's like additional information that I don't know. So because
said the auctioneers were exempt from it. What is it?
Okay, so it's called the Retailer Sales Act. Let me pull it up really quickly, and I can give you more information.
I think we're okay.
I think you're okay
I've just
too.
been told that that was the bill to exempt us, and we're okay on that. So
What are we exempted from, though?
from this retail tax act,
I'm just gonna look it up really quick so I can give you guys just like a
collecting sales tax mainly.
different.
Is it a sales tax law is what it is? The sales tax tells us we can do a one-time sale without sales tax. Living estate or dead estate, it doesn't matter. We can do a one-time sale. We don't have to pay sales tax on it. But I'm thinking that they may be changing us a little bit. I agree with you.
That's my worry.
Yeah, that we have to start collecting dead people's sales tax and giving it to air and let air turn it in. And we're working for the state if we're doing that. And they work for the state. They should collect it. I don't want to collect the state's, and I do on regular sales, gallery sales and things, but I don't want to be able to have to, in that law, if we have to collect a state sales tax, that's nuts. But it's very confusing. We probably don't have any answers for that today, Anna, but if you could check into it. Sales tax has this one law. Well, a human being can sell their stuff one time, everything they own or when they die as an estate. And as the Tennessee sales tax says that it's a one-time sales law, and we do not have to collect tax on it. And that makes the estate bring more money because the people realize where I live is 9.75. They don't have to pay the 9.75% tax unless it's a vehicle. But it's just a little confusing. But check into it. See if we still have that exemption for states.
I'll look into this and I'll send you guys an email afterwards and give you more details. And I'll also just I looked at the bill text. That's not helpful, so I'll just give you some insight on that. So That's the only one that specifically references auctioneers. There are a couple of bills that are moving regarding open meetings that would impact the commission. So the first one that I'll go over is HB 2864. And that states that if a governing body, so you all would be considered a governing body, has a meeting that is conducted via electronic means of communication, so that would be video conference, audio conference, it would require that any members of the public that are not present at like a physical location, they're required to have those links. So essentially it's allowing us to have more flexibility with the amount of meetings that we would have to be in person. This is one of the changes that stemmed after the pandemic, what was going on, and we had to meet all the time on WebEx. So it would state that each member of the governing body, so each of you 5 would have to be physically present for 50% of the meetings during a calendar year. So this commission meets 4 times. So that means that you would have to be present for 2 of the 4. The other 2 electronic means of communication is permitted. So, but there is a provision in this bill that if a board member fails to meet the requirement for the 50% requirement for 2 calendar years, the chair of that board is required to deem that seat vacant, and then it would be up to the governor's office to replace another individual. So it's essentially giving us more flexibility that we don't have to have an in-person quorum every single time. Any questions on that one? Okay. There's also a competing bill about open meetings. This one is a little bit different in that it would only require the board or commission to meet once per calendar year to have a physical quorum. So that means we would have to have at least 3 members at one meeting throughout the year, throughout a calendar year. And it allows us to conduct meetings by electronic means of communication. And both of those, if we have like a hybrid, if we have 3 people here in person and 2 people electronically, then we would have to provide notice to the public. These are the different options. It's just kind of which is already provided now. So prior to the pandemic, anyone could watch our meetings online as they're happening, and then they're available later on YouTube. So that's an option, but also now individuals are able to log on to Microsoft Teams. So if an individual, that gives the person, I guess, the ability to have like a public comment at the time if they wanted to do so, because the streaming doesn't allow that. So, but if people are here in person, that's where people can come in person as well. And that is basically the gist of the 2 bills. So they're both allowing more flexibility for boards to be able to have meetings, not required essentially in-person quorum every time. It's helpful for some of our smaller boards, or like one of our smaller boards here. As you all have 5 members, if 3 members were ill, we wouldn't be able to have the meeting because we don't have a quorum. So if we don't have the physical quorum, we can have individuals on call-in if they're related to that, or if there's some kind of weather event that happens in East Tennessee or West Tennessee or Middle Tennessee. in that instance. So that's legislative update I have for you. I'll follow up on the Retailers Act via email. And the last thing for me would just be that at our next meeting in May, we will be having a rulemaking hearing. The rulemaking hearing is going to be related to the statutory change, so the rules are going to match the statute, so essentially lowering the age requirement for a public automobile auctioneer from 21 to 18, like the law is currently. And then we're going to discuss the clarification for what licensure is required for public automobile licensure and motor vehicle dealers. So that rulemaking hearing, to my knowledge, will be here. But if for some reason the meeting is not at this location, I noticed it in the notice that we could also have it online depending on what happens. So did you all receive a notification last week? Okay, perfect, great. We were having issues. So if you know anybody that has any questions, if they have any comments, or they are permitted to either come in person and provide their comments here. They would just sign in at the podium and we listen to those, or they can provide comments on the web, or they can email me a comment and I'll read it into the record for the rulemaking hearing.
Question, Anna, do you have any update on the lawsuit?
Other than it's still here, I don't have an update on the lawsuit. We're actually just talking about that. I will check in with my supervisor because I know he's kind of been running point on that one to see if he has an update from the AG's office. I do know that after the pandemic, a lot of things got backlogged, so the courts are trying to resolve those issues, so we might be stalled a little bit more. So at this time, online auctions are still enjoined, so we are not permitted to regulate those.
A couple of years ago, when I came on the commission, I found out I was part of that lawsuit. You guys, you three, you're part of the lawsuit now, aren't they?
Yes?
Yep. So y'all are part of the lawsuit. Isn't that fun to know?
But let me clarify, part of the lawsuit in your official capacity as a board member. You're not part of a lawsuit in an individual capacity. So that means you are just part of the lawsuit. So the lawsuit is against the board. And then also, I think Glenn and Roxanne are also members that are listed in the lawsuit as well. So anything that happens as consequence, that'll be handled by the Attorney General's office. They serve as our counsel in this matter. So that there's no need to worry about your house being sold or any of those types of things. It includes members that are in and so if you're a member of the board, there is but
their names come off now, right?
I don't know. Okay. I'll have to answer that, but it should be, as they're not members of the board anymore.
To my knowledge, that was not the reason why they rolled off. Just so I'll let them clarify for you. But anyway, and as far as questions that our new members may have, again, this is a great time to let you guys know to feel free to always reach out to us. We're available throughout the week for any of those questions that come into your mind. And you're already doing that. We're in regular touch with one another, so no problem. All right, I think unless Ms. Matlock had any.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, let me introduce myself. I'm Everett Siner, and I'm with the Tennessee Automotive Association, the president. So hello to everybody. I had a couple of questions. One being, does council know the bill number for the retailer's market bill? If you said that, I missed it, so I apologize.
Yes, I do. I don't think I provided that, but let me give you that bill number right now. It is SB 2325 / HB 2267.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'll take a look at that. And also, you indicated there was going to be the rulemaking hearing. Do you know when that hearing is going to be, or do you have a tentative date for that?
Yes, the rulemaking hearing is going to take place on May 16th.
But I got a message here too saying that bill passed in 2020. We have a bill to amend that bill that would exempt us in the House now, but it has not passed.
Right, no, none of the bills at right now have passed. These are just, I was providing an update on the ones that have been filed.
Great. I really do appreciate that. And just on my own behalf, I look forward to working with the commission in the future. Thank you.
Sir. Got that covered.
They call that the Marketplace Facilitator Act. That's what they refer to it as.
Other comments, I think we're have any new business. Hearing none, then we can move to well, the reason why we're all here, which is to present plaques of these gentlemen behind me, Mr. Lowe and Mr. Thorpe. If you would come to the podium, please. We need a target. No, you said there's no produce. They weren't allowed.
I can honestly say I've been on this commission for a while. And we couldn't have had two finer commissioners come before us and serve on this commission than these two guys.
Yeah, they were both really sweet guys.
Very diligent and always here and always present and always did a great job. And I commend both of you gentlemen and appreciate the time served.
Best job. I want to echo what you just said as well, Mr. Morrison. I appreciate they were always really easy to work with, as you know. That was your experience as well. I can see that, and very knowledgeable too. Brought that to bear into the front of each of our meeting. Always prepared and had a real heart for service too. And then that's something that we certainly appreciate. So let me, without getting into the weeds here, let me present this to Randy Lowe. Also, Mr. Thorpe.
Pleasure. I hope this is legal. Auction school. I don't.
If you guys want to get back to your mic so that way we can get it all on the record.
I want him to buy their lunch today. Is that okay?
Well, you can do that afterwards. That'd be all right.
I want you to buy their lunch today.
I will do
$100. Buy them a good lunch.
All right, there you go.
Gentlemen, we appreciate your service. Thank
Y'all
you so
couldn't
much.
see it on the video, but we were taking pictures of the guys getting their plaques, and we're happy that they got them.
Little Monell's.
Okay, so maybe to a fifth. I have one follow-up. So I just received an email from Addison to give you guys some more clarity on the bill about the Retailers Act. She states that the bill that in question we're talking about is coming from TAA. So the exemption will keep the revenue bill that Chairman Sterling was talking about. The law that was passed in 2020 swept the auctioneers into the definition of marketplace facilitators, which tied the sales tax to the auctioneer as the seller and not the actual seller. So that is more clarity. Does that give you more?
Yeah, that's what I don't want.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Right. No, it's to fix that. It's
Yeah,
to
I know that they're trying hard to get it fixed, but it's not fixed yet.
Okay, that I'm just yeah.
On top of that, talk to her.
I think we got a request from Shane to come up and make a comment, if you don't mind.
Sure, certainly.
Sorry, I'm wearing multiple hats, but as the vice president of the TAA, just for clarity, in 2020 there was a bill passed called the Marketplace Facilitator Act. It was the state's response to Wayfair versus South Dakota. So the state of Tennessee wanted to level the playing field for online marketplaces and brick and mortar marketplaces. So that Facilitator Act essentially said, regardless if you're selling online or brick and mortar, if you're selling out of state, you're collecting Tennessee sales tax. Okay? Now, for whatever reason, the auctioneers got grouped into that. And since 2020, if you were selling estates, because in 1970 something, estates were exempt. We all know that, like you mentioned. We, at the TAA, we brought Tennessee Department of Revenue in as speakers, and they blew our minds because they said, starting in 2020, you guys were supposed to be collecting sales tax on estates. Well, there wasn't a person in the room that's been doing it because we don't collect on estates. So the TAA got Addison involved, and we have a bill now to essentially reinstate our exemption to where estates are tax exempt, because right now they're not tax exempt according to the law, which is why we pushed so hard to get this bill in. The big deal right now, in my opinion, up until a couple days ago, was the fiscal note. The fiscal note was going to be an issue with the state of Tennessee. The good news is that just a few days ago, we got a letter from the fiscal department supporting our bill, okay? So, because there's, I don't know what it's called, but there hasn't been any fiscal advantage yet. We haven't collected any money based on this act. So fiscally, it's being supported, and we're pushing, and we're trying, and we're lobbying to get this thing to where we can get back to operating as normal. Now, your online exemptions aren't ever going to happen, in our opinion. So we're not fighting the online piece of this, okay? We're just fighting that auctioneers can be exempt when we're offering estate items, because we don't want to be in the business of collecting and remitting sales tax for estates, because we haven't been for 40 years.
But we have been for 2 years, supposed to have been doing it.
Since 2020, we were supposed to, yes. And like I said, when the Tennessee Department of Revenue folks came down and talked to us at the TAA conference this year, and they were slated for 45 minutes. 2 hours later, there were 25 auctioneers lined up to talk to them in the hallway, and they were trying to get out the door as fast as they could.
Is there any repercussion to going back and saying, okay, now if you've had an auction since 1920, you owe us X amount of dollars, or
Since
with this
2020?
with this new I'm sorry 2020, will this new bill also alleviate any responsibility if you had an auction?
It is my understanding that that was the reason we wanted the fiscal note support. We wanted finance to support us, because if people had started collecting, or they had started auditing and collecting those monies, then there could be some retroactive. Now, if there will be, I don't know, but we're hoping that not, because it's not as if any of us were acting outside of the law. We just we didn't know any different, which, that's not an excuse, but at the end of the day, when you've been doing something that long, so.
When you say that you got the online part, we're going to have to pay sales tax on, what kind of online part are you talking about?
Well, that goes back to the Wayfair versus South Dakota, the Supreme Court, is that ultimately you're going to have to remit sales tax based on the jurisdiction that's purchasing at online
But
auction.
what would you be selling online? I mean, you're talking about just not an estate that's being sold online?
Goods in general.
Just goods okay.
Because
okay.
then depending on where those goods are taken possession of, if you're shipping it, then you're becoming a facilitator. And a lot of us have thought, since this 2020 thing passed, that if we were utilizing an online portal, that they were actually the marketplace. That's not the way the Tennessee Department of Revenue people explained it to us.
Gotcha.
So how we're ever going to handle that is a different fight. But we chose to try to get at least that old exemption back in place. And I've got the House bill, which I'm sure she does too, but I've got the House bill that's sitting right now, hoping to go through.
Thank you, Shane. I appreciate that clarification. That helps a lot.
Okay. Per every legislative session, as you know, everything's sort of, in flux. So once the hard data comes out, I'm sure there'll be more updates to come. And all right, I think we're done then. I think we're ready for adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Go new fella.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Do we have a second? We got a second from Mr. Sims. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.